Good evening. Peace be with you. Thank you for joining Essene Life for Evening Communions with Dr. Kenn. For the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring what I've called the Great Recycling. In part one, we talked about humanity's illusion of separation from nature. In part two, we asked a question that people have been asking for thousands of years. What if consciousness participates in that same great cycle? Tonight, I'd like to ask one final question. If consciousness is evolving, where is it going? Because I don't think evolution is random. Nothing in nature suggests randomness. The acorn doesn't accidentally become an oak. The river doesn't accidentally find the sea. The caterpillar doesn't accidentally become a butterfly. Nature seems remarkably purposeful, not hurried, not forced, just purposeful. So perhaps our own evolution is purposeful as well. If you've listened to these communions for any length of time, you've probably noticed that I keep coming back to one central idea: personal evolution. I honestly believe it's why we're here, not simply to be happy, not simply to make money, not simply to survive. Those things all have their place, but they're not the destination. They're part of the classroom. The destination is who we're becoming. Now, here's where things become really interesting. Suppose for just a moment that everything we've talked about is true. Suppose there really is one underlying source from which everything emerges. One life, one consciousness, one mind. Call it God, call it the All-Father, call it Brahman, call it the Tao, call it the Source. The name doesn't concern me nearly as much as the reality behind it. If there is only one source, then perhaps every living thing is an expression of that source experiencing itself from a different perspective. Think about that for a moment. Maybe the source isn't distant. Maybe it isn't watching from somewhere outside the universe. Maybe it's experiencing the universe through us, through you, through me, through every living thing. I've always loved standing beneath a clear night sky. Maybe you have too. Maybe when you look at the stars, it's difficult not to feel small. But I've begun wondering if we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, how small am I? Maybe we should ask, how extraordinary is it that the universe has become conscious enough to look back at itself? Because that's exactly what's happening. The atoms in your body were forged inside ancient stars. The oxygen in your lungs was made by forests and oceans. The water flowing through your cells has been cycling around this planet for billions of years. Everything about you belongs to the universe. And now, for a brief moment, the universe has become aware that it exists through you. I don't know about you, but that fills me with wonder. It fills me with responsibility. Because if that's true, then every thought matters. Every word matters. Every act of kindness matters. Every moment of forgiveness matters. Every decision to choose love instead of fear matters. Not because someone is keeping score, but because consciousness itself is learning through us. I've often described us as co-creators. Some people hear that phrase and become uncomfortable. They imagine I'm suggesting we possess unlimited power. I'm not. I'm suggesting something far more beautiful. Every parent understands it. A parent doesn't create a child alone. They participate in creation. Every gardener understands it. You don't create the seed, you cooperate with it. You prepare the soil, provide water, remove obstacles. Life doesn't rest. Maybe our relationship with the source is something like that. We aren't separate from creation. We are participants within it, co-creators. Every choice either contributes to greater harmony or greater fragmentation, greater peace or greater fear, greater love or greater separation. And every one of those choices begins exactly where we've spent so much time together these past months, in consciousness, in the thoughts we cultivate, the words we speak, the lives we choose to live. That's why I don't believe spirituality is primarily about what happens after we die. I think it's about what happens before we die. It's about becoming increasingly aligned with the source while we're still here. Every time we forgive, we return. Every time we choose compassion, we return. Every time we care for the earth, we return. Every time we become a little less arrogant, a little less fearful, a little more loving, we return. Not physically, spiritually. We begin remembering who we've been all along, not separate, connected, not isolated, belonging, not strangers in the universe, expressions of it. And perhaps that's what communion has always meant. Not waiting until heaven someday, but recognizing the presence of the source here, now, in this very breath, in this moment, in this life. When I was younger, I used to think spirituality was about finding the right answers. Now, I'm not so sure. I think it's about learning to ask better questions. Questions like, how can I love more deeply? How can I become more patient? How can I reduce suffering instead of adding to it? How can I leave this little corner of the world healthier than I found it? Those are questions that change us. And if consciousness really is evolving, then perhaps every sincere answer contributes to something far larger than ourselves. I've often said that I believe the world is a mirror, that every relationship, every challenge, every joy reflects something about our own consciousness. If that's true, then perhaps the entire universe is inviting us into deeper relationship, not simply with one another, but with the source itself, not through rituals alone, not through beliefs alone, but through the way we live. Think about everything we've talked about together these past months. Technology is a test of our maturity. The world mirrors our consciousness. Peace isn't something we visit, it is something we become. Think before thinking. Authenticity matters more than appearances. Nature is our greatest teacher. Every one of those ideas points toward the same destination. They all ask us to become a little less fragmented, a little less fearful, a little less driven by ego, and a little more aligned with something timeless. Sometimes people ask me what enlightenment looks like. I don't imagine it as someone floating 6 inches off the ground. I don't imagine perfection. I imagine someone who has become beautifully ordinary, someone whose presence makes other people feel safe, someone who listens before speaking, who forgives more quickly, who judges less, who serves quietly, who walks gently upon the earth, who doesn't need to convince anyone of anything, because their life has become the message. I think that's what the founders of the ancient peace traditions were pointing toward. Not celebrity, not religious superiority, not being admired, becoming transparent enough that the light of the source shines through without distortion. Like a clean window, the window isn't the point, the light is. Maybe that's our work, not becoming more important, becoming more transparent, so that love passes through us more freely, wisdom passes through us more freely, peace passes through us more freely. And if enough of us begin living that way, families begin changing, communities begin changing, cultures begin changing. Not because someone forced them to, but because consciousness is contagious. You've probably experienced that. You've walked into a room where someone was deeply peaceful. Nothing dramatic happened, yet somehow everyone around them became a little calmer. The opposite is true as well. Fear spreads, anger spreads, resentment spreads, but so do joy, hope, compassion, and peace. That's why your personal evolution is never merely personal. It touches everyone whose life intersects with yours: your children, your friends, the stranger you smile at in the grocery store, the person you forgive, the tree you chose not to cut down, the animal you treat gently. The choices you make ripple outward in ways you'll probably never fully see. And maybe that's exactly how the Source intended it: quietly, patiently, one transformed life at a time. When I think about returning to the Source now, I no longer picture a destination somewhere beyond the stars. I picture a direction. Every act of kindness moves us toward it. Every truthful word moves us toward it. Every moment we choose humility instead of arrogance, gratitude instead of entitlement, service instead of selfishness. We move a little closer. Not because the Source was ever far away, but because we were. The journey has never been about finding God. It's been about removing everything that causes us to forget we have always lived within the presence of the Source. Perhaps that's why I call this path the path of peace. Peace is what remains when separation begins to disappear. Peace is what remains when we remember that we belong to one another. Peace is what remains when we remember that we belong to the earth. Peace is what remains when we remember that we belong to the Source. And if that is true, then perhaps the great recycling is not merely a cycle of matter or even of consciousness. Perhaps it is the endless movement of creation learning to recognize itself through us. And here's your Dr. Kenn challenge. Until we meet again, begin each morning with this simple intention. Today, I will help the world remember its oneness. Then choose one intentional act that reflects that commitment. Plant something, forgive someone, encourage a stranger, spend time in nature, reduce your consumption, listen without interrupting, offer compassion where judgment would have been easier. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did my thoughts, my words, and my actions move me closer to the source or deeper into separation? Don't answer with guilt. Answer with honesty. Then begin again tomorrow, because the journey isn't measured by perfection. It's measured by direction. And every step taken in love is already a step toward home. Thank you for joining me this evening. And until next time, strive to be intentional in thought, compassionate in word, mindful in deed, simple, innocent, sincere. Peace be with you.